Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Monday edition. We're live on Roku. We're live on Military Broadcast Radio, and we'll be live on other platforms later. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mac.
So, the NFL, this is the slowest time of the year, but we'll get this in. In the NFL, there's a chance that Sean Watson might not suit up this next year, with Cleveland probably drafting Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders.
Well, Cleveland goes number 2 overall in the draft, and they have to address the quarterback situation. Deshaun Watson suffered an Achilles tear at the end of last season, and then he re-injured it in the offseason again. And if he does see any action, if he can get back and play, it might be well into the season at that point. And it's a complete fiasco, as it turned out, that Deshaun Watson signing. And I'm not criticizing the Browns. At the time they signed him, from a quarterback's perspective, it was a good signing in the sense that he was an elite quarterback at the time. But with all his personal issues off the field, or for whatever reason, he just didn't perform in Cleveland. He just didn't perform in a couple of seasons he was there. The team underachieved, even though they went to the playoffs last year, not because of him. He was out during that time, part of the year. And going number 2 overall in the draft, you reach for a quarterback. If you don't believe in Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, if you don't think they could be a really good starting NFL caliber quarterback, if you don't believe that, you don't draft them. It would be a big mistake on Cleveland's part, because that means they're going to bypass on either Abdul Carter, maybe one of the best edge rushers to come out of college in years, or Travis Hunter, who could be a generational talent, who he hasn't even been drafted yet. And I could already project them as the next Charles Woodson, a future Hall of Famer. And he plays on both sides of the ball, okay? They're primarily going to use him as a cornerback, but they're going to integrate him into the offense where he could be a factor as well. So you're bypassing two terrific can't-miss impact players to take a chance on a quarterback who, unless you really believe in them, don't take that quarterback just because they're the best quarterback available. Let me ask you this, Mac. Let's say that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders didn't exist. Do you take Jackson Dart? Do you take Quinn Ewers? Do you elevate them in the top 3 picks? Chances are both of them might not go till the second round. And I just don't like when teams reach. With that said, I believe Shedeur Sanders is going to be a good quality NFL quarterback. Cam Ward, I'm really somewhat iffy on.
Well, I got a couple things for you here. First of all, if Deshaun Watson doesn't play next year, is he done in the NFL?
You know, a great question. With the money he would have made, if you're Deshaun Watson, would you come back as a backup for like $3 million a year? Maybe you do for a chance to prove you can start. I don't think he's quite through unless there's such a backlash against another team signing him. It's not worth the high maintenance of a player unless who has a lot of baggage, unless that player is going to be a star. Okay? And Deshaun Watson was a star when Cleveland, acquired him. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So it was worth the baggage because he was going to be a difference maker at the time. It didn't turn out that way. But if push comes to shove, would I say he's through? I'd say no. If he could come back from the injury, prove he still has perhaps the potential to be a good quarterback, might a team take a fly on him, get him in as a backup, or would a coach like Mike Tomlin bring him in the way he did with Russell Wilson, whose skills supposedly were slipping at Denver? It's a good question, Mac, but I would say the answer would be no. I can't imagine Deshaun Watson not being able to make a roster, at least as a backup, and then, as I said, be given a chance at some point to get in and play and show he might still have what it takes.
Right. Cam Ward and Shedeur Stevens. All the quarterbacks. Let's put all the quarterbacks in there. Teams reach because they don't want to miss out on something that could possibly be greatness down the road. I don't think it is going to be, but no GM wants to be the one that says, I didn't take him and I should have took him and Jack.
You got to shut the noise out if you're a GM. I mean, you think of the Giants going third. Chances are one of those two are going to be available. If they believe in one of the two, you take them. The Giants got criticized for taking Saquon Barkley, and a lot of people said, oh, they needed a quarterback. They should have taken Sam Darnold. They should have taken a quarterback with the 3rd overall pick. Well, Sam Darnold was the guy available. And Josh Allen was in the same draft, but Josh Allen wasn't rated quite as highly as Sam Darnold when they came out. It was somewhat close, but Sam Darnold was higher rated coming out of college. And people still had the audacity, even some Giant fans, when Saquon Barkley showed what he could do already, and it was an established Giant, well, they needed a quarterback. That's what they should have done. Really, they should have taken Sam Darnold, the Giants, instead of Saquon Barkley. I mean, stop the nonsense. But these people, they're great second guesses, Mac. They wait until they feel there's a body of work to see how the team's going, and then they give their input. You see that with the NFL analysts all the time. They don't tell you before the play what play they think they should be run. But right after the play is run and the play doesn't succeed, they question the play. You see that all the time. And then you see them come up with their bold predictions beforehand. And when their predictions totally fail, they never come back to their predictions to talk about what they predicted. They just move on to the other thing, to create criticism or controversy or whatever. And but the Giants at number 3, they have a GM, Joe Shine, who's a proven loser with the Giants. He's a proven loser with the Giants in the job he's done, but he's been given another chance to reverse it and show that he's a capable GM. John Mara's giving him the chance to dig out of the hole, and restore his reputation. And he can't flub the 3rd overall pick in the draft. Yeah, you can't do what the Jets did when they drafted Zach Wilson, number 2 overall, because Zach Wilson at the combines, he showed he could throw the ball across his body better than any quarterback in a long time. Great. Maybe, you get a quarterback who could do somersaults, a triple backflip, show his athleticism and draft him high. I mean, these guys, the GMs and the evaluators, it seems like they want to justify their position. It's very simple. There's game film.
Right.
Sit down, study the game film, study who that player was going against, the team schemes, their formation, the circumstances. But they like their combines, okay, But the Giants at number 3, I can't see him taking Shedeur Sanders. He doesn't fit into the Giant culture. You get that feeling. And Cam Ward, you get the feeling more fits into the Giant culture. But how good is Cam Ward? I seriously question that.
Yeah. So at 3, will you go Travis Hunter?
I go with Travis Hunter. Well, who's Tennessee taking first? It's Tennessee conceivably might trade down, but I get the feeling Tennessee's not going to go quarterback. They will take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And then Cleveland at 2. I think Cleveland does take Cam Ward because the quarterback situation is a mess there. It's an absolute mess. And I think they take Cam Ward. That leaves Travis Hunter for the Giants. You can't go wrong with Travis Hunter. But do you take Shedeur Sanders? I do take Shedeur Sanders, actually. And it makes me wince to bypass on Travis Hunter because I think Shedeur Sanders will be a good quarterback in the league. And he'll solve the Giants' problem as far as being a franchise quarterback. Do I think he'll be a great quarterback? No, do I think he'll be a pretty good quarterback going forward? Will he be as good as, let's say, a Geno Smith, but a younger version who could play like Geno Smith has played at Seattle going forward for years to come? Yeah, and that's good enough to win if you get the right players around them.
Yeah.
Maybe a little better than Geno Smith, a little more upside, I think. Slightly, maybe.
Right.
Then again, I might take Travis Hunter. Mac, I might be in the room with you at draft night. I could see myself persuaded to take Travis Hunter at this point because I'm flip-flopping right now as I talk to you. Travis Hunter is such a great player, such a great talent. And I always say you never pick according to just need. You pick the best play available. The only possible exception is at the quarterback position.
Yeah. So if the Jets, of course, we know Aaron Rodgers is not with the Jets anymore. He brought over Davante
officially,
Adams.
he is actually, Mac, officially.
Well,
they're going to release him, but we know.
Right. So Davante Adams came over with him. Didn't have as big a season as he normally does. I mean, he had a decent season. So if the Jets can't trade him, Jack, they'll release him. And if you're a team, why would you trade for him if you know you can get him for free?
Oh, yeah, the Jets aren't going to get anything from him. They're going to have to release him. Davante Adams showed in the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars late in the season. He still got it to a large degree. He was incredible in that game. It wowed me. Davante Adams is going to help one of the teams. He's going to he'll be a cheap pickup. They won't have to give anything for him. And why would anyone give the Jets anything for him now? He doesn't have a guaranteed contract.
Right.
So teams can redo what he makes. Okay. And he's going to have to take significantly less. But of course, Devontae Adams, it's a wait and see, but there'll be a market for him for sure. There'll definitely be a market. But teams aren't jumping all over Devontae Adams right now because they don't want to pay him anything that resembles big money. And that's the only way they would be able to get him right now. But as time goes by, the amount of money they'd have to give Devontae Adams would be substantially less because there wouldn't be a bidding war for him, based on any type of high price.
Right. And it's not guaranteed anyway. So, the contract's not guaranteed. So,
yeah, well, you take a team like the Bengals, for example. Let's say they lose T. Higgins.
Right.
They could sign Devontae Adams for a cheap amount. The Washington Commanders, they have some money under the cap. Maybe that's the move they want to make. You pair him with McLaurin as wide receivers, and they just got Deebo Samuel as well. Those are the type of moves. I could see a contender really wanting Devontae Adams in the worst way. A contender.
What are your thoughts on Deebo Samuel's going to the Commanders? I was ready to say Redskins.
It's a great move for the Commanders. All they gave up was a 5th-round draft choice.
Right.
And 5th-round draft choices make the team more often than not, but they're not starters the majority of the time. They'll make the roster, play some special teams, play backup, occasionally become a starter. And sometimes they don't even make the team a 5th rounder. They make a practice squad. They're kind of like in the middle in a sense. Good deal for Washington. They didn't give up a lot. You can afford to play around and give up a 5th-round draft choice, what's really not hurting you that bad. The way George Allen used to say, old Washington Redskin coach, he'd pick up a play, he'd say, Deebo Samuels is our 5th-round draft choice. We couldn't draft anyone nearly as good as him in the 5th round, and he'd be right. But the thing is, you're paying Deebo Samuels for this year, the Commanders, but they can afford it. They have the room under the cap this season. He's a free agent next year. So they're buying all in this year. And look, if the Commanders, go to the Super Bowl, Deebo Samuels is great, maybe they sign him, beyond this year. So in a way, it's a 1-year rental for 5th-round draft choice, a little bit of an expensive rental, but I think it's a good deal there. The Niners, all they got was a 5th rounder. I think, could they have done any better? Maybe they looked at the landscape and thought, we can't do any better for Deebo Samuels. He's been hurt. Teams might perceive him as a prima donna, perhaps. And, but 5th round, or they may have thought, look, the most we could probably get for him would be a 4th rounder. So since someone's offering us a 5th rounder now, let's snatch it now, and move forward.
So John Lynch, the GM of the 49ers, is open to trading wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. He wants the team to get younger. Right now, I think they're the oldest team in the NFL, Jack.
Yeah, I don't know Ayuk's exact age, but he's not that old. But the thing is, why didn't he do that a year ago? When Ayuk was having all these contract difficulties, wouldn't, show up late, this and that, and he was creating a lot of drama. And Ayuk later admitted he created drama, that he maybe shouldn't have this, that. And a year ago, he had more value to trade. But the 49ers last season, they were buying into the idea that their window hasn't closed to win a championship. They want to come back with the same cast of players, and they can win the championship last year, they thought. And they had a horrendous year. They had a lot of injuries, but so did other teams. So they had just a terrible year. The Niners didn't make the playoffs. And now they perhaps feel, well, their window's not open, put it that way. Maybe they feel it hasn't closed completely, but now they're moving on. Samuel, Ayuk, and they're kind of rebooting. I don't want to say rebuilding, rebooting. And Ayuk, they could have gotten more value from last year. And the contract they gave him, it's going to be hard to trade him now. It's going to be hard to trade him. They should have just moved on from him last year when the opportunity was there. But of course, they thought they could win, and they thought he could be an important part of, their offense.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think last year Debo was out. Of course, Christian McCaffrey was out. So Ayuk was really the only wide receiver threat they kind of had.
Ayuk was injured as well, last year. I mean, but for them to move on from him 1 year after they signed them and they were so anxious to get a deal done, something happened last year where I don't want to say they soured on him, but they don't see him as a part of their future now. And last year, like I said, they were so intent on getting back to the Super Bowl. With no fooling around. Let's just sign all our guys, our core players, and make a run at it again. And they don't have the same strategy this year. I mean, even we hear with Brock Purdy, Mac. Well, are they going to sign Brock Purdy? Are they kidding? I mean, who's going to quarterback for them? They don't sign Brock Purdy. Come on, Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. Call him a game manager if you want, but he manages the game darn well. Okay, and Brock Purdy's going to be with the Niners. They are going to work something out with them one way or the other.
Isn't Jimmy Garoppolo the backup?
No, Jimmy Garoppolo's the backup on the Rams.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay.
And please, no Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, you give me a list of quarterbacks and put them in one category. Guys who are competent, the Jimmy Garoppolos, the Derek Carrs, those guys are competent. But if you're trying to make them your franchise quarterback, I mean, please, no. I mean, I saw on ESPN, one of the writers was predicting who was going to be the starting quarterback for every team next year. Every team next year, prediction. We see Sam Darnold to the Raiders, which I don't think will be the case, but you never know. And they had Derek Carr, the Jets starting quarterback, and I go, no, I mean, that is brutal. It's a disaster, not a short-term disaster. Derek Carr would come to the Jets. He'd have a few good games. The Jets would go maybe 9-8, 10-7, perhaps. And he would have a halfway decent year, but then he would totally fall apart the next year. And what it would mean, you would have wasted a couple of years as a franchise rather than be moving forward, having momentum and building a solid foundation. You wouldn't be doing that with those type of guys. And, you have a bunch of them have been around, like the Carson Wentz, back up at Kansas City. I mean, Carson Wentz could be, had he go anywhere, he could start. Yeah. I mean, the Jets could get Carson Wentz to be their starter, take a chance on him, but there's a reason some guys moved around. Once in a while, a guy has a bit of a resurgence. I mean, but you could say about Baker Mayfield, but Baker had 2 really good years with Cleveland.
Yes, he did.
Too. But it's risky, some of these moves. Brock Purdy is solid. He's solid.
Well, you got a former starting quarterback on your team, Jack, Tyrod Taylor. And even though Tyrod Taylor is not what he was a long time ago, he can get you to maybe 9-8, a wild card, maybe.
Because they're like Daniel Jones. My prediction is going to start the season is the Vikings starting quarterback. Yeah, you can win with Daniel Jones to a point. You want a guy who's going to be there the next few years as you start it and play well. Daniel Jones wouldn't be the answer. Tyrod Taylor wouldn't be the answer. I mean, don't outsmart yourself. I mean, I said that about Derek Carr when he went to the Saints. They can't get rid of him quick enough, but because of his contract, he's still there. I told you what he was going to be with the Saints, but he has a new coach. He'll start the year with the Saints. He'll play a few good games, and then I'll be told, you see, you were wrong about Derek Carr. I'm not wrong about him at all. And I'm not wrong about Tyrod Taylor. They'll play a few good games. Jacoby Brissett, he'll play a few good games here and there, and people are going to think how good he can be, And it's even Sam Darnold. I predicted he'd have a very good year with Minnesota, and he did. But Sam Darnold isn't a franchise-altering quarterback. That's what the problem is. He's not he won't alter your franchise for years to come in an upward direction. In other words, he's not your guy long term. That's the problem. But you can win with him over a couple of years. And, quarterbacks are just different. I mean, some guys are franchise quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, franchise quarterback there. Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud. Those guys are franchise quarterbacks going forward. They're going to be your guy there for years. You can rest easy with them as your quarterback.
Yeah. So Lee Reddick has been covering the combine, Jack, and he says Jackson Dart improves his draft stock. Now he's from Ole Miss, which Eli went to, and Eli, I guess him and Dart have been talking. So I don't know if that means he's going to go to the Giants. I heard he might go to the Jets. What do you think?
If the Giants take Travis Hunter, for example, in the first round, number 3 overall, and Jackson Dart is there early in the second round, I'm okay with the Giants taking a chance on him early in the second round, because that's when guys like him and Quinn Ewers come into play. Will Howard, the Ohio State quarterback, had reportedly a difficult day at the combines, and Shedeur Sanders went on social media. He says it's hard to throw to receivers you're not familiar with. It all, which makes sense. What Shedeur Sanders is saying, and he. Some quarterbacks, they tend to move up the ladder, but you got game film. And you also have to see how much better they're getting, how much they're improving, in college. And just because Eli says, take them because they're from Ole Miss together, I don't go for that. There wasn't a greater quarterback guru reportedly than John Elway. You figure John Elway, great quarterback. If anyone's going to know quarterbacks, it's John Elway. I mean, he took guys like Paxton Lynch and a couple of others in the draft that were just awful.
Yeah. Well, Jason Dart did break the record last year at Ole Miss, and he did have a real good Senior Bowl. So there is tape on him too, Jack.
But the Giants, he's definitely not going. He's definitely not going with
maybe
the third.
He gets something.
Mac, he's definitely not going with the 3rd overall pick. If the Giants want him that badly, if the Giants think he is their guy, what they should do, if they can, is trade down. Trade down from number 3 to, let's say, number 16 and get additional draft capital, and then with the 16th or 17th pick or whatever, then take Jackson Dart, and then you got your guy anyway, and you got additional draft capital. If they really believe that he's the best guy, but to take him number 3 overall, I mean,
no, that's crazy. That would be crazy.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the second round, but we learned a little with the Steelers. I mean, they never draft high enough to get the quarterback they want. They got Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh, and then Malik Willis went in the 3rd round. You can't reach for some of these guys just because they're quarterback. And Jackson Dart strikes me as the type of player, because he's a quarterback, teams are going to reach extra hard for. And Listen, some teams are going late in the first round, and you don't especially have a glaring need. And if you have a veteran quarterback, like the Rams, for example, if they like Jackson Dart a lot, they're picking in the 20s somewhere, Maybe you take a flyer and you take a guy like him at that point. I can understand it, but not where you're at the Giants at number 3.
No. So turning to the NBA, Julius Randle returns from injury in the win over Phoenix. Minnesota gets closer to full strength. Now, Randle has a history also of being injured. He made a couple nice plays last night, saved the ball from going out of bounds, had a slam, played good defense, and of course, Ant is the star there right now.
Yeah, bad deal for Minnesota to trade Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks for Randall DiVincenzo. I mean, Randall, even when he's not hurt, I mean, he's a good player, very good. But when you look at the Timberwolves now, you don't think of them as a potential championship team. You just don't. When you talk about the teams that could win the NBA championship, their name doesn't even come up. With Karl Anthony Towns, you would think they had the potential to make a run at the championship at least. At least be one of the contenders. And, to what is, Kevin, in the loss to Minnesota, they beat Phoenix. Kevin Durant was criticizing his Sun team. He took a leadership role yesterday. This isn't acceptable, how they're playing. The Phoenix Suns are like 4.5 games with 21 games to play. They're 4.5 games out of the final play-in position. And what a disaster if you can't even make the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
And Phoenix, when they got Durant, they thought they, became a championship contender.
Yeah.
Or when they got Durant. And they tried to trade him this year. Nothing quite worked out. I mean, who would have thought? Yeah, you got your threesome: Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. They could be this bad. I mean, who would have thought it? So it just shows you with the chemistry. I mean, for some of these teams.
Yeah, it's not always about talent, Jack. A lot has to do with chemistry on a team. If there is a good feeling in the locker room, if there's a good feeling on the court, not that you don't need talent, because you do, but I think chemistry is underrated.
Yeah. Yeah, well, definitely, especially in basketball. So much so. I mean, yeah, without a question.
So the MLB Players Union expects a lockout after the contract expires in 2026. The Major League Commissioner, Robert Manfred, indicates that teams intend to lock out players, Jack. The salaries keep going up and up and up, and I understand baseball, they make a lot of money too. But they're the ones that take the chance. They're the ones that own the business. They're the ones that, they're the ones that hire the people. So I guess the Major League Baseball is going to try and get it back to in their direction.
Well, what do the players want? I'm more so an advocate usually for the players than the owners. That's just me. I can't stand when people say, "Oh, those selfish ball players." I mean, people who talk that way, they're like clueless in life in general. Okay, I mean, if on their jobs, if someone else offered them a job paying a lot more money, and they wouldn't take it, they would be, of course they would take the job that paid them a lot more money. And can you imagine people calling them ingrates because they took a job that paid them like 30% more money? That, it just doesn't make sense, like the public's perception. They would blame the players, and because it comes to mind immediately well, look at all the money they're making. Look what Juan Soto's making. Look what this guy's making. Look what that guy's making. But with that said, what do the players want? Are they seeing that the owners are keeping just about all the money and it just giving back a little amount to the guys who perform on the field? I don't know exactly what the deal is, but the owners, should have to open up their books. There should be transparency that the players should see. But I wouldn't worry about it now. It's 2026. But as far as baseball goes in the news, President Trump, he said he's pardoning Pete Rose. I mean, I don't want to say what good does it do now, okay, as far as making Rose eligible for the Hall of Fame. If he pardons Rose, that's sending a message to baseball because he said Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, and he's kind of going after Major League Baseball. And I think for most fans believe Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. We're tired of this drama. And baseball has been completely hypocritical. They allowed Rose to go in the Cincinnati Red Hall of Fame, and baseball, their relationship with gambling now, come on. It's complete hypocrisy to keep them out. I think it was hypocrisy at the time, but that's just my opinion. I understand Pete Rose seemed to be a miserable human being. Okay, I'm not going to argue the merits as far as him being a nice guy, not a nice guy, whatever. But he belongs in the Hall of Fame, point blank. But why wasn't this done earlier when he was alive, when he could have appreciated it? Right after he passes away, we're going to have this movement. It just strikes me wrong the way Major League Baseball is, handled this from the get-go.
Well, our friend Dr. Paul Semendinger says the rule's the rule. He broke the rule. He would say he shouldn't be allowed in now.
Yeah, well, Dr. Paul, a dear friend of ours, is a very conservative guy. And it's thinking, going by the book, you broke the rule, you broke the rule. Okay, the sentence he was given, he broke a rule. But Major League Baseball basically changed the rules after that. They have relationships with gamblers. They have commercials with gambling companies, gambling companies. They tell you bet responsibly on games. Right. Send the guy into a bar and tell him to drink responsibly. Okay? Come on.
Yeah.
It's like, you could say a rule's a rule, case closed.
Right.
And that's the end of it. Okay, if we're going to be that inflexible as a society, I could point out a lot of things, where people supposedly break a rule. I mean, things are adjustable because of circumstances. There's a spirit of a rule and so on.
Yeah. So Major League Baseball, of course.
That wasn't the rule. I just want to say one thing. The rule in Major League Baseball had nothing to do with the Hall of Fame. It was banning someone from the game of baseball, not banning them from the Hall of Fame. And if it's a rule, Pete Rose should not have been allowed to have been inducted into the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame.
I don't think that's the same, Jack. Cincinnati controls that. Major League Baseball, I don't think it controls the
Cincinnati should have been able to rehire Pete Rose to be a batting instructor or whatever.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know, Jack. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know whether Pete Rose gambled. Well, they said he gambled on his team or against his team as a manager.
He bet on his team. There was no evidence of him ever betting against his team. He put bets on his team. It was flat out wrong. Bart Giamatti, the commissioner at the time, was going to give him maybe a sentence of a few years. It wasn't a lifetime ban, but Pete Rose was a pathological liar.
Yeah.
Pathological liar. He kept denying betting on baseball. He dug his hole more and more and more. He brought it on to himself in large degree beyond gambling. Had he admitted what he did all along, he would have been back in the game in a couple of years. And as far as a rule being a rule, wasn't George Steinbrenner banned for life? And rules are rules. Once you're banned for life, you're banned for life. You broke the rules. You know, he conspired with Howie Spear, a gambler. That you asked Doc Semendinger, was it okay that Steinbrenner was brought back to the Yankees? Did he object to that? He's probably going to say no. Listen, I heard the same nonsense in boxing. One person told me, who votes on the International Boxing Hall of Fame, I'm not going to say who the person is, but well known, says he would never vote for anyone who was, convicted of using, caught using steroids, suspended. They'll never get his vote. I pointed out to him one famous fighter, extremely famous, who was never everyone knows was on it. And he said, yeah, I'll vote for him because he was never officially, caught on it. But, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
So Major League Baseball and ESPN is all overdone, we know. So they're looking for other streaming agencies, Netflix, I think, well, a couple other ones too, to carry the game. So now you're going to have to pay to watch baseball, your team on TV, Jack.
Baseball is boring to watch a lot of the time. You think I'm going to pay? I'm going to sit there to pay for Netflix. I have Netflix. I have Prime, Amazon Prime. When you get older, maybe I'm wrong about this. We'd have to take a bit of a survey. I think people do a lot of different things when a baseball game is on. Now, when the NFL is on, especially if it's the Jets, I watch every play. I put everything aside. I'm sitting, I am watching the game. I mean, I might have my iPad out, and between plays on the commercial, I'm checking stuff out. Yeah. But baseball, I can't watch in the, second inning, ball one, strike one, bounce at the third base, throw to first. Listen, Aaron Judge comes to the plate. I stop what I'm doing. A few players get your attention. You stop whatever you're doing.
Right.
As a little kid, I used to do that with Mickey Mantle. But it's there's a such thing as overdoing it with your product. It might not, be as great as you think it is to people. Put it on all these streaming services.
Well, that's why I always respected the announcers during baseball, because they've got to be able to talk about other things while the game's going on, because it is so boring. So they'll be talking about, what happened at the store or whatever it is. I do respect them to be able to do.
Well, we don't do that. Yeah, that's one of my things. During a talk show like we have, once in a while could joke around a little, but don't spend much time talking about other nonsense. That's what I didn't like about Michael Kay's show. I love Michael Kay himself. I thought he was outstanding with Don LaGreca and Peter, what's his last name? I forgot. They good guys to listen to when they talk sports, but they go off on a tangent about other stuff. So I would change the channel. I couldn't take it anymore. I had no interest in hearing it beyond the occasional joke. Once in a while, they say something a little funny. You listen in, it brings a smile to your face. But people have to hear sports. You could talk about sports in a joking way as well. You don't have to be dead serious, have this look on your face, like so intense. But during a baseball game, Phil Rizzuto would talk about the Italian restaurant. Oh, you should have seen the plate of lasagna I had there. It used to drive Mel Allen crazy, the hardcore baseball announcers. But during a game, you need some banter that could go back and forth, a little bit joking around what went on in the clubhouse, this, that, you know, you can't be so intense on every darn pitch. I mean, when I was a kid, this never made sense to me, Mac. People would say it's good to keep score of the game, have a scorecard and keep score. I never did that nonsense. It's restrictive, it's boring. Who the heck needs it? I'm keeping score of the game with every batter does. They would tell you, like, what a good thing it is to do. It was a waste of time.
Believe it or not, Jack, some people still do that.
They do. Listen, if you're a scout, if you're working for the team, you want all these little tendencies, I can understand that. You know, I'm reading a book now that I'm in the process of reading it that was written by Andy Martino, a very good author who's written several baseball books about the Brian Cashman era with the Yankees since Cashman started working there. I'm still relatively early in the book, maybe like 1/3 through, but it's fascinating stuff, how they evaluated players, you know, how they looked at players and, you know, different positions, you know, how they kind of graded them on certain ways. So for that, I understand with scouts with certain tendencies they're going to do. Like they talk about 5-tool players who could, you know, hit, you know, throw, field, hit with power, average, blah, blah, blah. But the Yankees had a different way of grading guys, like a catcher. They would disregard the 5th tool speed running the bases. They didn't factor that in the grades because they averaged it in the grade. Then the overall grade would be much lower on an elite catcher.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you were doing it that way, Johnny Bench would rate lower than certain above average outfielders and his overall grade. So, but it's, you know, fascinating read, you know, to see what these scouts do, every like little thing, you know.
So the Yankees did spring training, of course, so don't want to read a lot into it, but they get beat up by the Braves. Stroman gives up 4 earned runs, including back-to-back home runs. The Yankees offense just wasn't there, Jack.
So you, Mac, are worried as a Yankee fan because they lost an exhibition game. So you're now very concerned and you're very worried, Mac, because they got beat up by the Braves.
I'm worried about Stroman.
You're right. Now you nailed it, Mac. You nailed it perfectly. You don't take much out of losing an exhibition game, you know, like that. They're just throwaway games. But you look at individuals, and the one player who's the biggest spotlight player on the Yankees right now is Marcus Stroman. He had a miserable year last year. Stroman says he's not going to the bullpen. He's obviously upset because he lost his place in the starting rotation, and he lost it because he pitched lousy.
Yes.
But in his contract, he has, if he pitches 140 innings, it kicks in for next year, his contract. So he has a lot riding on it. And the Yankees couldn't trade Stroman. No one wanted his darn contract. So if you're Marcus Stroman, just shut up and do something about it. Pitch well in the exhibition game. You pitch well against the Braves. Guess what? You've got the Yankees' attention. And there's a good chance, I hate to say it, and I've said it before, and this goes for any 5-man rotation, one of your 5 starters is going to have to miss some time. Marcus Stroman is next guy up. He would get his opportunity. Pitch well. And if you pitch well when you get your opportunity, the Yankees aren't going to sit you down. One of 2 things is going to happen. You're going to get to continue to pitch one way or the other, or they're going to trade you somewhere where you're going to have a chance to pitch. So what does Marcus Stroman do? He gets lit up yesterday.
Yeah.
He gets lit up. So what faith would the Yankees have in him? What case is he making for himself? Don't complain. In Marcus Stroman's case, it's not just an exhibition game. It's an indirect audition. and he's probably too insulted to audition. Well, I was a leading actor at one point. You can't expect me to do a commercial now. Well, if no one's calling you to even do a commercial, you do what you have to do to get back in. Maybe a commercial after the Oscars isn't the best way of putting it. You don't give me a small part like that, he's probably saying, with only a few lines in the movie. I want a leading role. Well, you better perform, guy. And he didn't. Yesterday was a bad bump for him.
So if you're Cashman, if you're Boone, whether he likes it or not, continues having bad games, you put him in the bullpen, Jack.
You have to. You have to put him in long relief. Because he's a starter, he's used to going a lot of innings. You put him in long relief. That's his job. Now, look, if the Yankee five-man rotation stays healthy, okay? Obviously, Garrett Cole, he's not going to, is in the rotation. Max Fried is obvious. Carlos Rondon had the big contract. They're not taking him out of the rotation. Lewis Gill, Rookie of the Year, they're not removing him. And Clark Schmidt, the fifth starter, is locked in.
Yeah.
Marcus Stroman, no matter what he does, isn't cracking that rotation unless someone pitches poorly on the lower half, meaning a Clark Schmidt or maybe a Gill or whatever. But they can't get rid. They could just cut Marcus Stroman and pay him his money. But Mac, I don't want to hear the Yankees have all the money. You're not paying $18 million a year to a guy and just cutting him. I mean, listen, Mac, if you own a store, company, an office, are you just going to tell a guy, I'm paying you for the next year, get lost? You want to get some production out of him, even if he has to do paperwork and put files, take out the trash and dump it, something. You've got to get some production out of him. But Marcus Stroman, they'll use him in long relief for now. Use him when there's games are bunched up. He'll get his opportunity. Marcus Stroman's got to be professional, got to be ready. We're going to see whether Marcus Stroman makes noise or not, because you can tell he's kind of antsy.
Yeah. So NBA standings, Jack, Cleveland is still number one at 50-10. Boston's at second, 43-18. The Knicks are at 40-20. Milwaukee 34-25, and Indiana has moved up in a tie with Milwaukee. So pretty much the same as it was before. Top teams except for Indiana.
Yeah, you get the feeling the Cavaliers are the NBA's version of the Minnesota Vikings this year. The great regular season. I mean, I know the Vikings had the second best record behind the Lions, but the Cavs are going to have the best record. And then you can see them falling to the Celtics, The Indiana Pacers made it to the conference finals. They're playing better. Are we going to sleep on them a little more than we should? Probably. But the Pacers, to just to survive and get to the finals, that means they have to beat the Celtics or the Cavaliers or the Knicks, probably a combination of a couple of them. But, maybe the Pacers could make some noise. You don't know. I mean, maybe they'll wind up, like a fourth seed or something. And could they upset the Celtics possibly? And then have the Knicks beat the Cavaliers, and then could the Pacers beat the Knicks in the finals? I'm thinking of a path for them to go to the finals.
Yeah.
It's always possible, but the Pacers, are maybe a little better team than we, tend to give them credit for.
In the West, Oklahoma City, 49-11. The Lakers now in second at 38-21. Denver at 39-22. Memphis 38-22, and Houston 37-23, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers intriguing, they're playing well. We thought the Lakers, could be like a little long in the tooth. And Yeah, excuse me on something. I was just taking a look at the standings here 1 second because you really caught my attention, Mac. I didn't fully realize that. The way the Lakers have come on lately, I knew they were in the top 6, but when you said they went second, and I'm taking a look, I mean 10.5 games behind OKC, who's the obvious favorite. But the one team that could be a surprise, maybe that could make some noise that no one talks about, maybe could be Memphis. They're sitting there in the 4th position, but if the playoffs ended today, we don't know how the play-in tournament would evolve. I think the play-in tournament, Dallas is 4 games ahead of Phoenix. I still think Dallas is a dangerous team. If Anthony Davis comes back 100% healthy, Dallas is going to make some noise. They are going to make some noise, but Anthony Davis has to be 100% healthy. The Lakers with LeBron, this is the problem that could be facing them in the playoffs, perhaps. If the standings stay the way they are now, there's a good chance the Lakers would have to play Denver in the semifinals of the West. That is a tough matchup for them. Can they win it? Yeah, they can win it, but Denver would be slightly favored there. Unless Memphis, moves into the 3rd slot, then that would mean the Lakers would play, Memphis. But then again, they're bunched so closely, teams 2 through 5. The Lakers are only a game and a half ahead of the 5th seed Houston. What happens if Houston goes on a little burst? So we don't know how, the final seedings are going to play out, but we know OKC is, going to be the top seed.
Definitely. Well, folks, we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank you for tuning in and watching us. Remember to download that Roku channel search it if you have Roku TV. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day.